Okay, guys, so welcome to this week's Capstone Chat. This week, we're very fortunate to have Joyce Orlando, who graciously agreed to speak with us. She has spent her whole career, oops, I gotta admit one more person into the room here. She has spent most of her career in publishing and journalism, and now she is beaming in from North Carolina, where she works for Gannett, and she is managing a lot of their social media efforts and while writing at the same time. So I thought that that would be of interest to many of you here. So without further ado, here she comes.
Hi guys, like Monica said, I'm Joyce Orlando. I currently work for Gannett Media, which is based out of McLean, Virginia, but I work as a remote position called a digital producer. Basically what I do is I take stories that journalists write and work on SEOs, which is search engine optimization, make sure those are all in place so Google hits it and they get more traffic to their sites. Also work on their social media accounts, anywhere from Facebook to Instagram to Reddit, all those kind of things in between. Before this, I've only been doing this now since February, so pretty new to the area, but had some great teachers who taught me a lot of things beforehand, and Monica. But before that, I was working as a journalist for a local newspaper here in Shelby, North Carolina. It was The Star. It was a smaller newspaper catering to a community of about 100,000 people. I covered breaking news, which included anything from murder trials to the wreck that's happened down the street. I was also one of the first reporters to break the capture of Dylan Roof that happened a couple of years ago. I just so happened to be sitting in the police chief's office when everything went down and had that kind of exclusive thing. That's where I've kind of been. Before that, I was in Indiana working as a journalist for another smaller paper. And just kind of before that, it was school. So that's what I've been doing. Monica, anything else I should be talking about?
How did you go about getting that first job? I'd be curious about that.
Okay, so the first job I searched was a lot of internet search. There was this website called journalismjobs.com that I used. I have no clue if it's still there anymore, but it was really useful when I was looking for a work when I first out of school. I graduated and I had a job. Basically, I did have to move, and I kind of something I wanted to do was move around to different locations and such. Didn't move too much, ended up in North Carolina and found that I love the area. So I've been here now going on 8 years.
So students, I'm thinking how we're going to run this. How about in the chat, if you've got a question, why don't you just say, I've got a question, and Joyce, if you can open your chat window and kind of call on them, that would probably be the best. Hopefully, while they're getting that up, maybe I'll ask another question. Okay. So what was it like breaking like such a big story? What happened?
I was actually sitting with, like I said, I was sitting in the police chief's office. We were actually discussing something that was entirely different. It wasn't a crime thing. It was a community partnership that they were working on with the local churches. And all of a sudden I start getting text messages from other deputies and things that I knew in the area saying, hey, have you heard this? Hey, have you heard this? Can we get confirmation? And I looked at the chief and just asked, hey, did you guys capture Dylan Roof? And I got the confirmation right then and there. It was lucky enough we had built a relationship beforehand that he didn't automatically just kind of send me on my way or put me in a different room and not let me talk to anybody. He let me stick around, build, because it had been built of trust and things like that, that we would sit there and he could talk to me and tell me what was going on and put the information out there quickly.
for those students that aren't familiar with it, I mean, this was back in what, 2015, 16-ish?
Yeah, 15,
Yeah.
16.
Yeah, back then he was a white supremacist that shot people in the Charleston church.
Yeah,
So for those of
you can say he murdered.
he
people.
murdered people, yes, and he has been,
Yeah, he has been convicted of it and will probably be getting the death penalty.
yes, exactly. So that's kind of it's a big story to have to.
Yeah.
Wow.
Say Grace, Grace, you have one?
Hi, yeah. Thanks for coming to talk to us. I appreciate it. I was thinking about, because we're college students, and I'm majoring in film, but I find myself like not even really being sure of completely what I want to do when I get out of school. So my question for you was, like, what moment did you have where you thought, okay, this is where I should be, this is what I want to be doing?
With that, before I went to the communications department, I was actually an engineering major, all things. And one of the girls I knew through some friends said they needed a science writer for the Picket, which I think the Picket's probably still there.
Yeah.
But your on-campus newspaper. And I said, why not? I'll give it a try. I don't mind writing. It'll get me back in the community a little bit, get to know some people. So I started writing for the Picket and realized that I really enjoyed it. And I started reading more about journalism and what might be the best fit for that to kind of go down that line. So I got in the mass comm department and went from there. When I was going there, they were switching majors from just like mass communication to having the concentrations that they do now. Does that answer your question, or you have anything else?
Yes, yeah, awesome, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. And it does take a little while because, like I said, journalism writing it's a tough gig and such. So I found this digital producer job, which I really enjoy. It's a great job and great fit for me.
That's awesome.
Do you find that journalism is changing a lot, even in the short time that you've been in there, Joyce? I mean, it's certainly changed since, in the past 20 years, but what have you seen personally that's been really different?
So personally, what I've seen, how it's changed is the change of really focusing, because I do print journalism, really focused on print editions and going to more of a digital aspect, really looking at how we can reach not just this small little audience in a community of the size I live in, but also hitting communities all across the country that might be interested in a certain subject, from weather to if some breaking news like the Dylan Roof story happens, that we're there, and we can target a whole wider audience than just what print journalism used to be. So I think that journalism has been changing for years. And even when I did my senior capstone, that was my premise of it, is that journalism is changing. It's not going away, but it is really changing which realm they look at. So instead of having that physical paper, we have our phones and our tablets and everything. So that's where I've seen the big changes.
Gotcha. So who next in the peanut gallery? Who's got a question for Joyce?
I'm not scary, I promise.
It's super not scary. Not scary at all. Well, I'll keep asking questions until you kids do. So that's because I have lots of questions. So you're working in this small market and you've worked for small publications, and there's a different type of relationship, I guess, with your reading audience when you're kind of a hyper local publication. Do you see anything being at risk by trying to cater your stories so they appeal to a broader audience?
There is, especially you lose, maybe some of that older audience, I want to say, usually the 65 plus crowd, you'll start losing some of them because they're really used to this hyper local journalism. Still cater to but also try to make it appeal to a broader audience as well, and people of younger generations, because not everyone wants to know what church is having which potluck and things like that. They're looking for bigger news pieces that affect them, but also affect the country and things like that.
Okay. Yeah. All right, April, what's your question?
Well, it's not really a career development type question. I'm just kind of interested. What are some of your personal highlights from working where you are? Like, I'm kind of interested. What are some things where you're like, all right, this is why I did this.
I was going to say the Dylan Roof thing is a really big one, but I also like telling those smaller stories where it's a couple years ago when there was some issues where DACA might have been repealed and things like that. We had a local student who came to me and told me her story. She had moved here from, I believe it was Colombia, when she was a baby. So she was Colombia citizen, but had come over here with her parents, and they weren't citizens of the country. So when this whole the DACA repeal was coming in, she was just terrified that she was going to be sent back to this country she has no ties to whatsoever. So being able to tell someone's story like that and really putting a face that can be seen and heard and is local to this very broad story that people might not connect to really means a lot to me. And with some of the other things I've done, like breaking news and stuff, I talk to people on their worst day of their lives. Either they've been in incidents or their family member's been in incidents that they might not be coming back from. So being able to tell their story and let people know just what's happening to them has always been a really big highlight of my career. That's the best way I can describe it.
What's the most difficult story you've ever written? What's been the most challenging?
There was two in my career. So when I was going to say it was probably 2015, 2016. A police officer here that I knew, I had interviewed several times and everything, was murdered. He was shot in the line of duty and died several days later. And then there was a national manhunt that went from it. It was a very difficult time because I'm seeing people that I've known, that I've built relationships with, really hurting. It affected me a little bit too. My father was a police officer, so it kind of hit home a little bit for me. So that was a difficult story. That was a difficult week. I probably worked about 100 hours in 1 week, keeping on abreast of everything on that. Another one was I had people, friends, acquaintances that I knew from community were killed in Iraq. So I'm sitting here like knowing these people, seeing these people that I care about, and I still have to report of what's happening. And then I have to talk to other people that I know and care about, asking them the difficult questions. And that's a hard thing to come by when you're part of a community and you live in a community, because it's not just I'm someone from Charlotte coming into this small, Charlotte's about an hour away from where I live, and this Charlotte news station coming in asking these questions. I'm your next door neighbor asking these questions, and it's difficult sometimes.
That's so awful, and I'm really sorry that that's something that you've had to experience. But also, I think it's great that you were able to give a perspective that maybe not a lot of people were able to have. So, yeah.
Thanks, Grace. I've got another one in the chat here from the other Grace. How do you feel ordinary people reporting on events through social media has affected more traditional news sources, reporters? Do you think these two factions will continue to coexist? Usually when I see a social media post from like people who are just people see some event and things like that, we do get, as reporters, get a lot of information by seeing posts like this. They see something happening, they'll message me or they just post it, and we're always looking through social media to see what's going on in our community and things. So it's been a great resource, but there is some hindrance to it because people think what they're doing is reporting the situation where it's just giving an observation of what's happening, not actually getting information from people who are responding to something or people who are in the thick of things. We as reporters and as news people, we rely on some officials, eyewitnesses, and all these different resources to make these stories, not just our personal. This is not about us. This is not our personal perspective. Usually it's about what's happening and what we get from people who are part of it, who are maybe officials and things like that, to understand what's happening. So there's plus and minuses in the category. I think it'll still be part of it because, again, it's a great resource. It's a great stepping off point to help reporters and help even local people just know what's kind of happening in the community. Again, good and bad to both that situation.
Someone else. Bailey, you got a question?
I was actually thinking on one. I was just feeling shy.
Not allowed.
So
Shy.
I know. So I was wondering more about like your social media experiences. Like you said, you work on Reddit and things like that for your job.
Yeah, so I went from being a reporter to this digital producer, which now really focuses on social media and online content more than just writing. So basically, we're using the aspects that reporters have gathered to make these social media posts maybe a little more like intriguing, where they just maybe have 2 seconds to throw something on. We have a few more minutes to really craft something that will grab people's attention, make them want to click on things. Then we've used Instagram as a big play right now, where we can use the photos, that these beautiful photos that people can take, which I am not talented at all, but I can tell where it looks good. So
Yeah.
I'll write the content for it if they take the pictures. So we can use this content to make intriguing and captivating social media posts to bring people to our website, to drive traffic. That's what we do a lot.
Yeah, and that's kind of where my problem is, because I've been working with some social media accounts like for my Capstone, and I have an internship and just, around, and I'm finding that I have a lot of trouble balancing my time with it, because social media is one of those things that never ends. It just, you keep doing it. So I just want to know how you balance that and how you can like turn your brain off of social media, because it's all I think about now, because
It's difficult.
I need content. Yeah.
It's a difficult thing, because then you go down the line and all of a sudden you're like, why didn't I write that? That would have been a really great post. It is hard to turn off your brain when you're doing things. I do a lot of things. Usually I work in shifts with a whole bunch of really great people that can make great content. What I do is when I'm finished for the day, I try to finish for the day. I don't try to keep going. I get off social media for a little bit. I raise chickens and rabbits, so I have to go take care of them. I also I'm an avid biker, so I go on long bike rides without social media with me or anything like that. So just finding a physical way to separate yourself sometimes is the best way to separate yourself from it.
Thank you so much. That really does help.
Yeah, I know it is a hard balance. It is a really hard balance.
How did you know when it was the right time to go to your next job? Like, when did you, I mean, you've worked for a couple places, and I think that a lot of students here think, oh man, I'm going to my job and I'm going to stay there. You know, my parents say, keep that job. How did you gracefully go from one to the next?
So I did it. So when I first got the job I was working in Indiana, if some of you guys didn't hear that, when I first graduated, I knew it was kind of time to step down and keep moving forward because I didn't see any room for growth there anymore. It was a great first job and everything, but it was a paper that was slowly losing some days and such. Like we were losing, instead of a 5-day-a-week paper, we were becoming like a 4-day-a-week paper, and it was looking like it would get smaller. So it was time for me to say, I want more challenges in my life. And this isn't exactly where I want to be, but I was willing to step out of my comfort zone. And I think that was the biggest thing, is just being willing to step out of your comfort zone. Your first job is not going to, 99% of the time will not be your ultimate job where you want to be in life. All I can say is don't be afraid to take leaps of faith sometimes. If you want something, do go for it. I applied for a job here in North Carolina as a breaking news reporter, did not think I was qualified for it at all. But I still went for it because it's something I wanted to do, and was hoping to get feedback on what I could be, how to build my resume a little bit more, but it worked out for that. I did the same thing with this one, taking a leap of saying, I needed to change. Working in news, sometimes you get a little burnout and tired. And I found myself repeating a lot of stories that I had done before, and I didn't want to do that. That makes you a stagnant journalist, and it's not an asset to a lot of people, and it's not an asset to a paper. So sometimes you see yourself starting to burn out and you just say, I need to change. I need to find a new focus. And you can always go back to something. If that's what you find out that's truly what you want to do, you can always go back.
Shayna, do you have a question?
Yeah, you said you went from doing print journalism to doing like more stuff online. I just kind of wanted to hear more about what that transition was like, because that seems like it'd be really two really different things.
It's not as different as you think sometimes, especially the way print journalism has changed. We did have a lot, like when we're crafting stories and things like that, all of our stories are crafted in internet-based browsers, and also different internet-based things. So I wasn't changing systems so much. It was just learning how to hone a story that would make it a little more, taking skills I had already learned from doing mass communication in school, and things I had learned along the way, and extra trainings. The company I work for was really big into getting trainings about how to make that transition from print to this digital-based job. So it was, don't get me wrong, I'm still learning things every single day. I am here at this job, and I would probably keep learning for at least a couple of years to come, because the thing with social media, Google Trends, anything like that, it is always changing every single day. There's always something new to learn. Does that help any, or any follow-up?
Yes, that answered my question. Thank you.
Okay.
Saka, you have any questions?
Yeah.
Oops, your audio sounded a little funky there.
If you could type it down, it might be a little easier.
Yeah, go ahead and type it in the chat window.
Yeah, you're breaking up a lot.
Yeah,
Is this better?
that's perfect.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Something's wrong with my AirPods, I guess. But So my first question is, like, I hear you mentioning a lot of different like areas that you worked in.
Mhm.
So you said Indiana, you said you're currently in North Carolina, but I don't know, where are you originally from?
I'm actually originally from Martinsburg. So just outside of Shepherdstown. I grew up in the Eastern Panhandle.
Okay. So like with this job that with the journalism, have you been like moving around a lot? Is it stable or is it have you just
The moving around part has been my choice. I've always been kind of that I want to go different places, wander around, find new places. So that's my personal choice. Like I said, I've been in North Carolina now for 8 years in the same town that I really love. And actually, my folks moved down here too. So
understood?
yes.
And my next question is about so the Dylan Roof thing.
Mhm.
So you said you were in the police department when they got the call. Is that correct?
Yes.
So like how was it like what was the sort of tone or like how was it in the police department? Was it like shock or anything like that?
Well, the tone I got at first, it was a lot of shock because it was just like, it was, again, you're a very small community and it's like Dylan Roof was captured here of all places. Um, it was, there was a lot of shock there, trying to get accurate information out as quickly and quickly as possible, while also trying to make sure I'm looking for how people are reacting to the situation and things like that. I was where I was seated and where I could like see different things. There, it was kind of a sense of relief after he was brought in, that he was not on the loose anymore. But it was a very hectic time, just trying to understand what was going on. Having national media descend on a small community is always a difficult time. So it was chaotic, I think is the best way to say it.
Understood. What was were you able to speak to any of the residents of the town and what like they thought about the situation or was it because it's a very
Yeah. So we were part of that. I didn't speak directly to the one woman who actually made the phone call when she saw Dylan Roof driving through the community. The editor that I was working with at the time, he spoke with her and she was just like, it was just shock mostly. And then other community members, they just kind of, we found out later that Dylan had Ruth had some family connections here. So it was a progression story. It took many different layers of from the shock to the what did the police do the right things when they were stopping this? Like what situations could have been different? How could have this played out and things like that. So it was an interesting time. That's what I can say.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah. Anything else?
Not for me. I'm good. Thank you.
Okay.
So Joyce,
Hmm.
all of these students are getting pretty close to graduation, and I'm sure they're looking at their pocket of tricks and wondering what skills should I have well under control before I leave. And I mean, since you are now a journalist, but you're also using other tools for your social media, what kind of things do you think that students should leave with school? What do you wish that you might have, had more background in, or, just practical aspects like that?
I think, oh, that's a good question. I'm trying to think here now. One of them, I wish I had done a little bit more on the web end of things, maybe more research into SEOs, how they affect how search engines affect what we see day to day. So maybe a little more into the computer aspect of things now that I look back.
Mm-hmm.
But like you said, it's always a changing thing. So it's hard to really pinpoint maybe a single thing.
Mm-hmm.
because half this Google trends, translations, analytics is totally different than what it was 9-10 years ago. So it's hard to really pinpoint something on that end. Maybe some more film would have been good. Developing a better eye for what would grab people's attention, how to quickly disperse some of the film procs, because that is a big thing that we do now, is using snippets of video to help tell a story. A little bit different than what you see on like local Channel 9 or something like that, news. So
Do you find yourself, like when you were working for a really small paper, did you find yourself having to be writer and videographer and sound person?
writer, videographer, social media, photos at one time, starting to. That's the one thing about smaller industries and things like that. And it's not just me. My counterpart with the Charlotte news station, the one-man band. He was his own videographer. He was writer. He was all these different things. So I think it's crafting your skills so you can be a one-man band, because that's what a lot of people are looking for, is people that can do a little bit of everything, maybe one really good thing, but able to have these other skills to complement that one area.
Good. Carly, you're kind of hiding out there. Any questions from you?
I'm sorry, I forgot I had it muted. Just listening.
So no questions?
No.
Okay, good enough.
I have another one from Grace that came in just a minute ago. What advice would you give for adapting from traditional journalism from like a newspaper or website to format it better for social media platforms? And how do you change the content to better work for a platform? On that end, it's being able to find that quote or something that really grabs somebody's attention. Because most of the time when you're using finding that content really grabs, finding content that really grabs people's attention. Sorry, I was going back to journalism, but it was rethinking the question in my head a little bit. I would say using being well-rounded in different areas can really elevate your social media play a lot. Getting a good video, getting a great photo, having those good quotes or good information coming out really drives people to want to click on things and really look more in depth of what you're doing. So I think I'm answering the question. I hope I'm answering the question that you're going for, Grace. And the how do you change the content to better work for a platform? Again, it all depends on what platform you're using. Like with Reddit, you've got a lot more information you can put out there. Twitter, you've got certain word spaces, so you need to think of something a little more pithy. Instagram is really big, like the hashtags and things that you use helps pull people in from different demographics, maybe different areas looking for something new to look at. So it's identifying your audience and being in the same area that they are, looking at what they're looking at and trying to pull them in to similar content that you have that they might find interesting. So did that help?
Where do you think you might be in 5 years? Where do you want to be in 5 years?
5 years. That is a really great question. Actually just started my master's in psychology as well. So I'm working on my master's degree. So hopefully I am working, I don't know if I'm going to be in the same position that I'm doing right now. I'm hoping I am in somewhere where I can use both psychology and what I've learned through social media and communications to help the community more. I've always been wanting to help people, and journalism is a way of helping people to get more information, psychology is a way of helping people treat their minds and things like that. So it's kind of hard to say where I'm going to be.
Looks like Ricky's got a question.
Yes, Ricky.
Yeah, I was gonna say, how did it feel for you transitioning from being a student to like getting more career type jobs?
It was a little surreal at first when you're you're finishing school and going straight into this working field where you in an industry where you might have some people that have been doing this for decades. Because you're still like, am I doing this right? Am I really, do I have a grasp of what I'm doing? I was really lucky. The gentleman who was the editor of the paper I was with first was really kind of hands-on and willing to work with a lot of new people. So I think the best thing to do when you're transitioning from student to career is maybe find someone like a mentor that you can kind of get under your wing, like you can follow them a little bit, get an idea of the industry a little bit better, because school prepares you for a lot, but it doesn't prepare you to be in the thick of things in certain industries.
I was gonna ask too, like, did you feel prepared when you left university?
I was the skills I had prepared me a lot. And like I said, I went straight into journalism, and it was a different world for a little bit. I pulled on all the skills that I had to do my job. But I think being the internships that we do for going out into our career are a great help and idea of what is going to be in that field once you get into it. So I'd say if you haven't done an internship or have done an internship, I'd say do another. Those really help you translate your skills that you learn in the classroom to the industry that you're going into.
Right. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
So Joyce, you mentioned that the paper that you were working for had gone from a 5-day to a 4-day.
Mhm.
And that's a very common story.
Yeah.
One of the challenges perhaps is trying to get stories that you feel will have mass appeal.
Mhm.
But is there a risk in that certain stories that don't have appeal that should be covered aren't being covered?
It is. That's a big thing sometimes. When I was still working in the newsroom, it was always telling people, it's like, it's not just that you lose days, it's also that you start losing people.
Yeah.
Once newsrooms start to shrink, you can only do so much in a day. I would get calls, and I still get questions to this day, because being in the community that I have been in, people still recognize me as part of the news source, so they ask me questions. And it's, why aren't people here for this? Why aren't people there for that? I'm like, you've got 3 people covering an entire area, and it's hard to do. So there are a lot of stories out there that aren't being told, which is sad, but you do the best you can. You're not going to be able to tell everybody's story or do every little piece of something that can be done. You do your best. Make sure you do quality work, no matter what you're covering, though. Or what you're doing. That's the best way to keep going and doing things.
With the news cycle churning so much faster, do you think that more responsibility lies on individual journalists rather than, perhaps an editor that would give a lot of feedback and a lot of direction? Do you feel like that there's more weight put on individual reporters out in the field?
Yes, I think there is a lot more weight putting on individual reporters, where you're expected to, again, be this one-man band doing a whole bunch of different things, and covering as much as possible in a short amount of time. So you really do have to be on top of everything. And it's a lot of pressure. I know many of my fellow journalists have burnout because it's a lot. And there's other areas that pay a lot better and do a lot better, but it's still something that's truly needed in our community. So I wholeheartedly believe in journalism and supporting local journalism at that too.
What's been the most rewarding story you've covered, do you think?
I have a question. What would you say your biggest influences are, and have they changed since you started working?
Professional influences have changed over the years. I know would be very cliche. My mother is actually one of my biggest influences. She is a very strong worker. Yeah, Monica is cliche, but she's taught me my work ethic. So that's been a big influence. But professionally, yeah, over time it does change. Especially you get to down the point where you meet people that are on a local level that maybe influence you a little bit more than maybe some of these national names and things like that. Down here, there's a reporter out of Charlotte, Ken Lemon. He has been a great influence in my career, and he was my counterpart out of Charlotte. He was a great influence in just how to act more professional in a setting, how to ask better questions, things like that. So when I was in school, there was a lot of, oh, I want to be like Anderson Cooper or things like that. Then you start getting into the industry and you realize there are people here that do day-to-day things that might not get the same hype as these national people, but they are doing just as well and doing a great job at covering or doing whatever they do. So yeah, long story.
Okay. So anybody else have any questions, or should we, I know that maybe just to end it on an uplifting thing, what do you feel has been your most rewarding part of your career? Like a story, or what do you look back on and you say, I'm proudest of?
That's a really good question because there's so much of my career ahead of me too. Right at this point, I think it is just being able to tell the community story, finding a community that I love. Like I said, I found a home here in North Carolina that I never thought I would have. And being able to share the story, their stories with each other, and learning more in depth about a community, it has been a big reward for me. And then also people acknowledging my professionalism, and also what I do has value, because again, journalism sometimes gets a bad rap. But every once in a while you get those people that are like really excited that you're part of that community. So that's been a big positive.
Great. So anybody else? I'm kind of scanning my little pictures here on the screen. Last chance to ask a question from a real life journalist with full attention. All right. Well, anything else? Joyce, are you good?
I'm good. I was going to say thanks for having me, guys, and thanks for your questions. I hope I answered them all the best I could.
No, you did great. It's been really wonderful, and thanks for stepping in and on such short notice. It's wonderful, and hopefully we'll stay in contact on social media like we always do, right?
Yep, that's how it works. And I was going to say, if any of you guys do have questions, you can find me on Facebook, Twitter, or Monica can get you in touch with me as well. So be glad to talk with anybody.
All right. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
No problem.
Thank you.
Good luck with your capstones and the rest of your college career, guys.
Thank you so much.